Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today we have a treat. We were recently approached by Boost Auto and they asked us if we were interested in trying out a set of their S-Series cab lights. Now they were kind enough to send us their top of the line lights, the sequential switchback with startup function, and I thought that would be a great test for us to put these on our truck, especially seeing we have the under hood startup sequence light, which I'll post a link to that video for you as well. These replace your OEM lights. We're going to install these on our 2019 GMC Sierra 2500 series pickup that, if you've seen a couple of other videos that we've done installs for, that's our truck, or my truck I should say. They've reached out. We're going to put a link to this product down below. Now, we don't make any money off that link, just so you know, our viewers. It's for tracking purposes. If you purchase through the link, they know you saw our video, and that way we can work on some collaborations for down the road. So thank you if you use the link for purchasing. Boost Auto is known for their truck auto parts. Take a look at their website. They have some great upgrades for your truck. We're hoping to maybe do another collab in the near future, so check back on the channel soon for that. We're going to install these lights, show you the steps, and then give you some feedback at the end of the video to let you know what we thought of the installation process, what we thought of the lights, and just overall in general. If you like this video, please click the like button, please subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel, and that way we can bring you more install videos, automotive truck upgrades, etc. Anyways, on to the installation video. Okay, so once you've disconnected your battery, which I haven't done yet, we're going to do that in a second. I thought I'd just bring you inside because we're going to need to drop this headliner down. There's a few things you're going to need to do. So take a look around your truck, see what might impede you. For example, we run a GoPro camera for recording while we're out on the road, or if you have a dash cam, you'll want to remove that. You might want to clear out your dash. We've got our RV GPS mount here. We're going to remove that, and we have some side cameras and backup cameras here for our fifth wheel trailer. When we're towing, we're going to want to pull that out. You may also want to take any phone holders, etc., out of the way to give you some clearance. Then what we're going to do is we're going to remove our center console here. I'll show you that in a minute. We're going to remove our visor and our handle here. We'll have to remove the handles over here, as well as the C-pillar for our that our belt is attached to, so that we'll be able to lower the headliner, and we'll be doing the same on that side. That's why we're going to pull some of these. So we'll get started with that now, and we'll show you some of the tips that we're going to use in order to take these down. Okay, first thing we're going to start off with is the center console here. You want to take your trim tool. There's the little tab little platform right here that has your center console lights in it. And you just want to gently get in there and pry that open. Pull that down because there's a few tabs. Okay, so there is a little screw up here. You might need, depending how dark it is, etc. We're using a light for filming, but you may need a secondary flashlight. It's right up here. It's a Phillips head, and you'll just want to remove that. Okay, so now that we've removed the two screws that are in there, we want to just, if you need, take your trim tool, pull down on it gently, and this whole center console should come right off. You know, just be gentle when you're working with it because you don't want to damage anything. So you want to gently pry it down. Now, when you do that, these two tabs here, may come out fairly easy, but they could also stick a little bit. If they stick a little bit like they did with ours, you didn't see it on camera because I had to get in the way of the camera. A little trim tool, a flathead screwdriver, you may need to just get in there and just pry a little bit with it gently, because you don't want to break these tabs. You'll need them for later, but you may just need to get in there with a tool. If they pop out easy, great, you're ahead of the game. Now what you want to do is disconnect these connectors here and just very gently work on getting them disconnected. Okay, now that we've removed the visor, we're going to remove the visor support. On the back here there's a little tab, so you just want to reach in with your pry tool, or like we're doing with the small screwdriver, remove that. And there is a small screw back here that'll need to be removed as well. There we go. Set that screw aside. And then what we're going to want to do is move on to our A-pillar. And we're going to want to remove the pillar here. So we'll reach in again with a pry tool, simply pry off the covers. And then I believe we'll need 10mm socket for that. So gently remove the two bolts here. Set those aside. And with our pry tool, we're going to want to pry it up and off. And then we can lift it up. So sometimes you just have to be a little patient, especially the first time removing these. Now we'll want to set this aside. And then we're going to want to remove the handle here. So again, you're going to want to work with a small pry tool or a little screwdriver. These ones will be just a little bit harder to get to because of where they're located. So you want to pop the covers forward. And then these are going to require an 8mm socket. So we'll grab our tool here, change it out. Just, gently remove those. There we go. And then gently remove the handle. Now what you want to make sure is you're keeping track of what bolts are for which pieces. And that's what's handy about having a table, or if you're gently setting it aside as I am on the back seat, you can keep everything together. Now we're going to want to remove the side pillar here, and we'll reposition the camera so that you can get a better look at that. Okay, so for the pillar here, we have two decorative trim pieces. So with our pry tool, we'll want to reach underneath and just pull off the top cover. There's one here for the bottom as well. And then those look like a 10mm socket. So do a quick swap here again back to our 10 millimeter. That's one, and there's a second bolt out here that we want to remove. And again, just be gentle with these. When you pull them out, set them aside. And we are going to come around front, because what we want to do now is we want to loosen this bottom trim piece. So you may need to pull some of the weather stripping back, and then again just gently working around the piece itself, working just to disconnect it there, here a little bit. That just gives us a little bit of working space. And then we're going to want to remove the pillar here. That'll just snap out. Because we've pulled back a little bit here, we got a little bit of working room. If you find you didn't snap it enough, snap it a little bit further down, and that will give us some working room, because there's a positioning tab down there. Now you want to take this, just set it aside, because your seatbelt's going to remain through that, and later we'll want to be careful to line that up. Now everything that we've done on this side, we're going to duplicate on the driver's side. We're not going to show you step by step because it's very much like this. I may even splice in the Boost Auto portion. So we're going to do the driver's side and we'll come right back. Okay, so we have done the same process on the driver's side. We're not going to show you that video because it's just a little awkward to shoot, but it's the exact same process on the driver's side. Now, what I want to do before I tell you about the headliner here, I want to give you some pointers. No matter what video you see, sometimes the trim pieces come off super smooth. Sometimes they're a little more complicated to pull off, or they're a little stickier. The thing to remember here is be patient. Don't just yank away, because you may break a piece and then you're going to need to go to the dealer and get a replacement clip, or heaven forbid, maybe even a whole trim piece itself. So my general rule is use little bits of effort, incrementally increasing that. Take your time, use your pry tools, as well as have a good flashlight on hand so you can peek behind to see, is it a clip, does it need to be slid out of the way, popped out of the way, and sometimes even with a flathead screwdriver or the little pry tool from your kit, sometimes you need to reach in and just use the tool to actually pry it out gently. Never force anything, because you're gonna have a situation that you don't like typically if you're forcing it. So I wanted to give that little tip. Now for dropping the headliner, what we want to do is gently pull it away from the weather stripping here. I've actually already done it on that side, and you can just gently pull it down. Again, don't force too much, because we don't want to be yanking any wires away that are glued onto the back of the headliner, and we don't want to damage the headliner. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around now, grab the camera in my hand, and just show you where those lights are. And we're going to start from driver's side, making our way over to the passenger side to remove the lights. Okay, so what we have here is, you're gonna see right up here, this is actually one of the bolts for our center light, and the second one is right up in here. We'll just try to get some light up in there, right in here. Now we're going to want to start with the furthest light, which is actually a little further down, but I thought I would just give you the illustration here because I won't be able to shoot close enough. If you have a skylight or a moon roof that opens, it'll be a little bit easier than if you have the traditional cab, because you're going to be a little more restricted. So that bolt there is a 10 millimeter bolt in order to back that off. But what you're going to want to do here is actually disconnect the light from the harness, because we're going to remove that light, and then we're going to make our way over to the passenger side light as well. So I'll shoot this while from a little bit further distance so that you'll see me removing the lights, and then we're going to want to clean the roof as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to gently pull down on the headliner. Right up in here is actually the connector for our first light. So we're going to just disconnect that. It's a little hard for you to see, but there's a little squeeze side tab that you push. That'll disconnect the light. Now, depending on the truck you have, be careful. Some of the trucks will have their roof-mounted antennas that'll be very close to where the first light is. So you want to make sure that you have the correct bolt. Just take a look and see, is your light closer to the door or is it the antenna? Usually it should be the light, so the first bolt is what you're going to go after. 10 millimeter socket, and what we're going to do is just gently reach in and basically undo the light. Again, be patient, take your time. You can do this if you have a power tool, angled power tool to get into that. I want to do it by hand just because I don't want to damage anything whatsoever. It just means it takes a little bit of time. Now, I apologize for having my head to the back of the camera, but it's just so you can get a sense of, you know, how tight it might be when you're working. Also, I apologize if you're getting any background noise. Because it's fairly cold outside, we are running our furnace in our garage, and what I may do one day is maybe we'll do a video, and talk about, if you're looking to set up your garage to work inside, some of the features you might want to look for, types of furnaces, etc. But today we'll focus on the light. So there's our bolt that we've pulled. What you want to do now is very gently lift on our light, and that should come out a little. You may need to reach in and squeeze the couple of tabs just to help it out. Because we just want to be gentle with it. And that way, if you want to reuse the lights at some point down the road, you're able to do that. Now, there's going to be a couple of little tabs here that you're going to need to pry in to allow that light to push up and be able to get it out. Now be careful, you may need to put a bit of pressure from outside to pull it up as well, and you may risk snapping those tabs. Now, if you never plan to use these lights again, not necessarily a big deal, but if you do want to keep them aside, then you know, you want to be as gentle as possible. The one thing, if you ever want to reuse these, is you'll need to get another new clip. These apparently are a one-time use itself. Now, the other thing I want to show you is, and we'll lift this up so that you get a better view. When you take it out, likely you're going to have a little bit of dirt and a little bit of the gasket here. So you're going to want to take the cleaner, a good cleaner that you use in your garage, clean that up nicely. We're not going to do it this second. We're going to wait till all the lights are removed, then we'll clean all of them so we have a nice clean surface, because the new lights, so we'll put the camera down here for a second, because we're going to grab one of the lights to show you, because Boost Auto talks about using a thicker gasket, and we'll show you the two lights together. So this is the OEM GM gasket, and then what we have here is the Boost Auto gasket. And I'll pull them out just so that it focuses better. And if we put them on a bit of an angle, you can actually see how thick that gasket is. Now remember, this gasket has been compressed, but I can tell you just by feeling it, you know, this gasket, the OEM gasket, isn't as thick as the Boost Auto gasket. So that's a nice thing to keep water out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work and do the same thing with the middle light. We're going to back out the screws, or the bolts I should say, and then we're going to work on the passenger side, remove those lights, and then we'll show you cleaning the roof itself. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove the center light and the passenger side light. Now I'm not actually going to show you that here for one reason. Because we don't have a sunroof, we have a full headliner, it's really hard to shoot this. You're not going to actually see me removing the bolts. So what I'm going to do in the video right now is I'm going to splice in Boost Auto's piece of video, because they did it on a truck with a skylight so that you could actually see them removing the bolts, and I'm going to put that in this video so that you can actually see what it's like up close and just really give you a good look at that. Then we're going to bring you back for securing the lights themselves, the new lights in.
I'm removing the center cab light. It's being held in place by two bolts underneath. Go ahead and first disconnect the cab light connector. Then remove the two bolts and retainers attached to the center cab light. Finally, let's work on removing the passenger side or right hand cab light. Locate the bolt and retainer inside, then disconnect the cab light connector. Remove the bolt and retainer, then press in the side tabs to release the right hand cab light.
Okay, so we have removed the lights, and you can see the residual that has been left, the dirt, etc. Now, one thing I can tell from this is that our center light, even looking at the bottom of it, when you look up close, you can actually see that some debris was getting in underneath the light. And as I mentioned in an unboxing video, we've seen that on an older generation truck where it got in underneath and then eventually it starts to cause rust. So it's actually a good thing that we're actually trying these lights right now. That just means if you have cab lights and you're not switching them out, you may want to check them and or put a caulking bead around them to not get this effect of dirt coming in. Now, what you'll want to do is basically get a good cleaner that you use around the garage. You might even need something like a little polishing, a little bit of polish itself to clean up the spots really good, because you want to remove any and all of this dirt away so that when you put on the new lights, you know, you've got a really good surface. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to just work away at it, make sure I've got an extra clean surface, and then we're going to proceed to the next step, which will bring you back to clean it. Now when you're cleaning, you can use, as I mentioned, a little bit of polishing compound. You could use a degreaser to take the grease, etc. off. Just make sure you're using a microfiber towel. Clean it, and then what I would do with the opposite side is just go over it to dry it up and take any dirt away, and then give it a few minutes to actually dry before you start installing the other lights. Okay, we've cleaned the roof. While we're giving it a couple of minutes to dry, again, I thought I'd just show you up close what the lights are like. So here is the GM OEM light. You'll notice the couple of little diodes just right inside it versus the Boost Auto that has a nice single long LED. So just a little bit of a different look. Now we are going from the amber light, because this has an amber housing, where this housing is clear. The Boost Auto is going to give us amber for signals, four-way flashers, but then running lights are going to be a clear white LED. So a little bit brighter, a little bit more visibility as well for people coming down the road for very dark or foggy or snowy nights as well. So I thought I'd just show you that while we were waiting for the roof to dry. Now we'll go back to the installation. Okay, so because of this full headliner, it's really hard for you to be able to see some of the details, so I thought I would just show you. So this little retaining clip is a one-time use clip, so you want to be very careful when you're installing it. You'll see the back of the light that the clip actually has a spot where it sits in like this. So you want to be careful that you don't put it in just off angle. In each of the corners, there's actually, and you can just see it here, in each of the corners, there's a little slot where it'll sit in. So the trick is, because you're working upside down, is to actually have this all together, come up with the bolt, get it into those slots, and just hand thread the start of it, so that when you're sitting upside down like this on the roof, and it's going to be tighter than you can actually see now, when you're sitting on the actual roof, that light, and you're working from underneath, that you just get it threaded enough so that it's all lined up in the actual holes. That way, when you start to put pressure, it's going to clamp down. If you've misfed that, you start tightening it and realize that it didn't go on properly and it's gone off on an angle. What's going to end up happening is you could end up putting pressure on this fitting and ruining it. And remember, it's a one-time use. So just be very, very cautious when you're feeding that in place. That was just a little tip I wanted to give you. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the other lights here and show you what the finished product is going to look like. Again, it's going to take a little bit of patience, especially with a full headliner like this, where you're having to work in a little bit tighter confines. So we're going to put each of the lights in, drop the pigtails down as we're doing that. We'll attach the pigtails, secure the lights, and then we will come back and we'll show you resecuring the headliner itself. In between that, I will splice some video together provided by Boost Auto, showing you some of those connections and tightening, just so you can see it live. And then at the end of the video, we'll give you our overall impressions of the product and the process, and then show you a live demo of it as well.
Cab light harness through from the top and line up the cab light post. Then install a retaining clip and a bolt to the post. Please make sure all the lights are tightened to the same degree. Finally, install the cab light connector to the factory harness.
Okay, so what we're going to want to do is push up the headliner here, make sure that you get it underneath the weather stripping. So you're just going to take your time, feed it slowly through. We want to get this side up, and as you can see, it just takes a few minutes to pull the weather stripping out, push that up, and just make sure all of it is there. Then I'm going to climb in here, and we are going to take the top part of this. Now you want to be careful because there's a part that inserts here but also slides down to be secured. So you want to take your time, make sure that you're getting it fed and secured in place. And as you can see, it just takes a little bit. Because you're working, trying to do a couple of things all at the same time. And what we may need to do in this case is one of the supports here, we may want to actually pop out and then re-secure it directly to the back here. Just because there's this little feeding tool or alignment tool that needs to line up, but it is so close to one of the supports, it may actually be easier to take the support, insert it into the base, and let's just give that a try again. Because now what will happen is the one side, let's see if we can get that fed so it feeds properly into the support. Lower it down to where it catches, and now we can snap both of those in. Okay, so you just want to take a few minutes, really make sure that you've got your belt adjustment in place, make sure it's tapped in well. Take your weather stripping, pull it to the outside. We're going to actually go around the back here. We're going to take the weather stripping, make sure it's also pulled out on the outside, because guaranteed there's going to be a couple of spots where it's caught, and that gets us nice and secure there. Then what we're going to do is take our bolts and our 10mm socket and feed it back in place. And I'm just out of frame, but I like to start them by hand. That way I know I'm not doing it with a driver or an impact wrench and messing up the threads. I like to get it started, make sure they're good, and then we can switch over to save ourselves a little bit of work with the impact driver. Do our top bolt. Make sure it's in properly. There we go. Double check our bottom. There. There we go. And then while we're here, we can take now the bottom part of the trim and snap it back in place. Again, make sure the weather strip is all the way on the outside. We go around, do the same thing to the back, because you know some of that weather strip is going to get caught underneath, and we want it sitting on top. We've got a nice good fit there. We can pop our trim pieces back in place, and they'll just fit in right here. Oh, I've got this one backwards. There we go. I already had the bottom one. Does not fit on top. So there we go. Just take a little bit of time and it naturally goes back in place. Now, what we're going to want to do is going to come back into frame so you can see me. Put our tool there. We're going to pull up our seat. I like to do a quick test again. Just make sure. So we want to adjust our seat belt. It stays in place. That's good. We're going to reach around now. We're going to grab our handle, and we're going to have to do a little switch because we definitely now need an 8mm socket. We're going to take this, we'll put that socket there, and we're going to line up our handle. Whoops. We're going to just line up our handle here. And we have there we go. And as I said, a lot of this is just taking your time, being patient, and just watching all your bolts and screws that you don't drop them anywhere, because depending where you're working, it might be really fun trying to retrieve them. So again, I like to just start by hand threading them in place. And that way we know, yep, that one, they have not quite sat where they need to be sitting. And that's why we want to hand feed them, because if you don't, you could end up stripping your threads, right? And this just gives you the idea and the feeling. You'll know as you've got it and it's starting to secure itself in place. Then you can take your hand tools, and there's probably a number of you going, oh, come on, we know that, Bruno. I'm just talking in general terms for those of you that are new at this as well. There we go. And then we can now take our, and let's see if we can do this. Take the little trim pieces, pop them back in place, and then fold your handle up. Next thing we're going to do is work on our support for our visor, and I have the bolt, the little screw right down in here. Again, we're going to do a little swap. We'll take out our socket. We're going to take our T15, and then we're just going to come up. This one's going to take a little more finessing. You may find yourself having to get really low here and working to find that location because you've got to look up at it. So we have that secured. And I think we can move on to our A-pillar now. So we're going to grab our A-pillar. Now this one, you want to be careful with this. So we want to feed this in. It slides in at the bottom. And then we want to line it up because it's got to go right in there. And again, we want to take the weather strip, make sure that it's on the outside because we want a really good seal in the truck. Plus, it won't really sit properly if you don't have that weather seal on the outside of it. So we're just going to work our way down to the edge here, make sure that seal is out, swap around a couple of tools. And we're going to do, as I said I like to, we're going to just manually start the threads on both of these. And I'm hoping you haven't been hearing the furnace running in the background, just so it's a little easier to hear me as I'm discussing some items. And now we're going to want to fasten that before we fully. Okay, and we're nice and good. Oh, I got a little bit of dirt there, so we'll clean that off. And once those are on, we can take our trim pieces, snap them back in place, do the same with our bottom one. There we go. And our last piece to put on, which we'll do a swap because we're going to need our T15, is reaching in the back here for our visor. Sorry guys, we had a little issue with the camera and the recording. It turned off on us. So we secured the 3 screws here. We've secured the support, and then we've put our plate back on. I was commenting that I was supporting the visor with my shoulder here as we attach them back together. Okay, what we're going to do here, because we had a little glitch on the passenger side with the camera, and then with the visor, what you're going to want to do is put it up in place here, and it might just take a little finessing because we want to get our guide right in there properly, and I'm hoping you can see this. Remember, these are T15s. We want to take our first one here and just gently put it enough so that it holds that in place. We're going to take our next 2 screws, and hopefully you can see this all right. Do the same thing. We're going to partially feed them in, make sure that they're actually grabbing. We're going to do the 3rd one here. Oh, sorry, 3rd one right here. That one we're going to secure it all the way in, and now we're going to go back and fasten the other ones all the way in. And then what we will do is take the trim piece here, feed the trim piece on, sometimes being a little patient and working around till you've secured it. I'm just checking, that's all nice and secured. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reattach our center console here. So we've connected our electrical connections. Now, little tip, if your truck is like mine, there's a screw here that you can't actually feed from underneath. You have to feed it from the center, and you know that the minute you raise the center console, it's gonna fall out of place. So what you have to do is take your screwdriver, hold that screw gently, bring up the center console so that you're lining up these end pieces to go into their supports in the roof, because you'll need to give it a gentle push. And then while you do that, that screw should be lined up to where it fastens so that it doesn't drop down, just like that. Now the other screw is a little easier to get to. It's open, but what I'm going to recommend is you take what I have here, a little magnetic holder, so that you can place your screw in place, and the magnet's going to hold it in place so that as you feed it up, and this is just a little bit of a tighter spot, as you feed it, you can get it in place and start threading it in place. And then that's nice and tightened. So there we go. So that works a little better. And you'll see me pausing occasionally. Unfortunately, I wear progressive lenses, and sometimes when we get really close, I have to look outside of the glasses to actually see really clearly. Unfortunately, it's the downside of getting a little bit older. And then now we can take this trim piece, snap it back in place. Now that we've done this side, the reassembly of the driver's side is exactly the same, just on that side. I'm not gonna, again, not bring you that portion. It's a little harder to shoot on the driver's side. So we'll assemble it, but it's essentially exactly what you've seen here already. And then we'll come back and do the electrical. Okay, so we're about ready to start electrical. What I'm gonna do is splice in the video from Boost Auto because they do a great job on the electrical side, and most of that is because I just can't get the cameras in the right positions as I'm filming alone, where they had a film crew so you can shoot some different angles and see what's happening. But before I splice that in, I'll show you the two main areas you're going to need access to. Then we'll splice that video in and we'll bring you back to show you the finished product. So first of all, on the driver's side here, you are going to need access to the BCM plugins, the brown and the black, right up here. And then as we come around the truck, you're going to need access to the fuse box on the passenger side, and we're going to need access right here to this plug in order to hook up our lights. Now I'm going to splice in that electrical side, and we will bring you back to show you the finished product on our truck.
To install your S-Series module, we'll first have to remove this panel on the passenger side. Disconnect the top connector. Do this by pressing in the side tabs on the latch to release, then swing the latch up all the way to disconnect. You can release some of the clips on the harness so you have more play on the harness. Cut the zip tie here to make more room to work here. Then peel back some of the tape on the harness too. Next, let's take a closer look at the S-Series module. This side is our input side with a 2-pin connector for power and ground, and a 4-pin connector for running light and left and right signal. This side is our output side. The blue wire will intercept the output to the cab lights. The black wire is not needed for this application, so go ahead and tape it out of the way. First, let's intercept the output to the cab lights. Locate pin 8 with the blue latch swung out all the way and pointing down. Pin 8 is 3 rows up from the bottom on the right column. Go ahead and cut this wire, giving yourself ample room on both sides. Strip both ends of the wire. Next, bring the S-Series module over, crimp down the blue output to the wire that's going towards the harness. To the wire going into the connector, start off by connecting one end of the butt connector from your kit to it. We'll come right back to this wire, but first, get the harness from your kit with the 4-pin connector at the end. This harness will connect running light as well as left and right hand turn signal. The orange wire is for running light. We're going to connect this wire to the butt connector we just installed. Since the S-Series module and the connector we're working on are both going to remain on the passenger side, we can cut the orange wire pretty short. Go ahead and strip the end of the orange wire and connect it to the butt connector. Now we will route the 2 remaining wires, the red and green and the red and blue, over to the driver's side, route them into the cab as shown in this video. Tape the wires to a flattened out piece of metal and route it behind the center console. Locate the BCM or body control module under the dash by the pedals. Disconnect the black and brown connectors. Go ahead and peel back some of the tape from both connector harnesses. Then, working on the brown connector first, tap to pin 2 using one of the red T-taps from your kit. With the connector tab on top, pin 2 is located on the top row and the second slot from the left. Press in the T-tab until it clicks into place. In the same way, on the black connector, tap to pin 3 located on the top row and the third slot from the left. Next, we'll cut to length the 2 wires that we had sent from the passenger side. Go ahead and strip the ends of these wires and connect each with a spade connector from your kit. Awesome, pay close attention to this next part. For our left-hand signal, we'll take the red and blue wire from our harness and connect it to the T-tap on the brown connector. And for the right-hand signal, we'll take the red and green wire from our harness and connect it to the black connector. Go ahead and reconnect the black and brown connectors. Then we can tuck the harness out of the way. Let's head back to the passenger side to continue with the wiring. Tap to pin 1 for power. For this wire, we'll be using one of the blue T-taps from the kit with the blue latch swung down all the way. Pin 1 is located on the top row in the right column. Next, tap to pin 10 for ground. This is located on the bottom row in the right column. Use the red T-tap for this one. And if you have 2 wires at that slot, tapping to either one will work. Up next, bring the second harness from your kit over. This will have a red and black wire with a 2-pin connector at one end. Since the wires are going directly from the connectors to the module, we can measure and cut it to length. If your wiring kit includes an inline fuse, it will have to be installed to the red power wire from your harness. Here's how you do that. After you have cut the red wire to length, strip the insulation and crimp down the butt connector end of the inline fuse to the red wire. Your kit will already have an eyelet and spade connector that will connect to the other end of the inline fuse depending on your application. For our application, we're going to be using the spade connector. Go ahead and crimp it to the inline fuse. If your kit does not come with an inline fuse, you can install spade connectors directly to the red power wire and the black ground wire. Just strip the ends of the wire and crimp down the spade connectors. Back at the connector, connect the red wire from the harness to pin 1 for power. And in the same way, connect the black wire to pin 10 for ground. Heat shrink the butt connectors, then secure the wires to the connector. Next, install the 2-pin and 4-pin connectors from the harness to the S-Series module. Install the clip on the connector harness. After that, you can go ahead and line up the connector in position, press it in, and swing the latch all the way. Secure your S-Series module on the side as shown here and tuck any loose wires in. Reinstall the side trim panel.
Alright, so once you've connected the S-Series module, as the video described, you should secure it up in place, tuck away any wires, and then you'll see there's our fuse, and underneath as well we have no wires exposed, they've all been tucked away. Then the next thing will be to come around front, and we are going to connect our battery here as well as our battery way over on that side as well. And that way both batteries will be hooked up, and then we will bring you the running of the lights themselves. Demonstration of S-Cab series lights. Left hand signal, right hand signal, four-way flashers. Okay, so some final thoughts. The install is done, batteries hooked up. As you've seen just prior to this, the function of the lights with the startup sequence, the turn signals, the four-way flashers. My final thoughts, I like the lights. They seem really good quality. I like the way they sit on the roof and the extra thick gasket compared to the OEM lights. I think it'll give it a little more protection from keeping any water intrusion there. I really like the look of the lights. They're very bright, and I like the idea that as I approach an intersection, not only do I have my flashers going on my main lights, but I actually have them up on the cab lights as well. I think visibility for people seeing you will actually be a little better, even though I don't know how sometimes they seem to miss a big white truck like this. Customer service has been great. The company has been fantastic, answering questions, etc. for me prepping the video. The installation is very straightforward, takes a little bit of effort, so you're going to need to leave yourself several hours if you want to take your time, because I don't believe in rushing a project like this. You want to take your time, do it right, use the old adage of measure 2 or 3 times, cut once, right? So double check your steps. I really like the idea that Boost Auto is doing installation videos. Instead of just handing you a piece of paper that says, here we go, follow these instructions, they're actually walking you through those steps live on video, so you can actually get a real comfort at it. And you may, if you've never done one of these installs before, watch the video 2-3 times. And as I mentioned earlier, take your tablet, take your phone with you. And when you're doing certain steps, like the electrical hookups, it's great to have that video there and go, oh yeah, it's pin 3, it's pin 1, and it's a double check. What I found as I installed it, exactly the colored wiring they had in the video segments that we showed you were exactly the same for our truck. So I give them credit for really doing that extra work and being different than so many other companies. I look forward to hopefully doing another collaboration with Boost Auto. I'm going to say thank you to them for these lights. They're fantastic. I really, really like them. And if I was out in the public and I was looking to do the upgrade, I wouldn't think for a split second about spending the money, I absolutely do it. So, and I'm not saying that because they've provided the lights. I really like the lights. They're great quality, and I think they're better than what the OEMs are. To you guys, I want to say thank you for watching the video. If you like it, please click the like button. Please subscribe. It greatly helps us so that we can maybe bring you some more of these projects that you might be thinking about doing on your truck. Let us know what you think. Let us know if there's some interest in any other projects that you'd like us to potentially undertake. Anyways, thanks guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you live life to the fullest each and every day.